Hello and welcome to part 10 of the Gauge 1 LMS carriage build. As you can see, we've finished the end plates now, the end pieces of the carriages. That's pretty well as I wanted to get them, to get these all finished. And up to this stage these are ready now. All we need to do now, what I will do is I shall remove these little pieces, these sort of pipework things, and these will be fitted on at the end when we finally assemble the roof on them. So what I will do, I will take these off. They're just going to get in the way now for the rest of the process and fit in the roof. But that's what we wanted to get to anyway. And what I have done, I've fitted one of these on the end just to get an idea of what that looks like. Yeah, we've got one fitted there, and we shall now go ahead and fit the other carriages to the end. And I hope you can see that how important it was to, if you like, do all this preparatory work first, because if the whole carriage had been glued together, and it would have been quite difficult to start drilling holes and fitting these little steps on and putting this fine detail on the whole thing. It just would have been a little bit awkward to hold, so that's why I did those separate. So I will go ahead now and fit the rest of these end panels onto the ends. Here's one of the end pieces in position now, being glued in, and I've got this heavily clamped to keep it square against this straight edge. We've got it clamped on here. Okay, here's the three carriage pieces now, all with the ends glued on. That's all looking pretty good. So we've got three carriages now with the ends all glued on. And what I've been doing while they have been drying, here's our 6 panels that we have from the supplier. And what he did do, he sent me a couple of scrap ones. And that's been quite useful because I've been able to do a little bit of experimenting on some of these. Things such as the doors. See, on here we've got some doors to go in. And I've been experimenting here on best way to do that, and I found actually the best way to, obviously actually marking the doors out to give them some sort of profile, to give them some depth. I've tried a couple of ideas how to get this in, but the best way I found to do it was really to gently, not scribe, but rub on here to get a V, to get a groove. One thing about this this plywood, this birch ply, is it's very, very, very fine, close grain. So it's quite easy to put a groove in without actually tearing the wood and getting rough, jagged edges. So you get a nice profile here for the doors. And the other thing I've been doing is I've also, to help show the profile of the doors, I've actually been experimenting with some little hinges. So I think they add a little bit of detail there. So I should put these hinges on as well for the doors, because we've got the grab handles and we've got the little handles for the doors. I thought let's make some hinges to go on here as well. Here are our hinges that I made. I know they are very, very simple, tiny little bit of brass strip, and they're just folded over. You probably can't see it, this detail, I probably can't get close enough, but a tiny little bit of brass strip just folded over to form like a little eyelet that represents the hinge. And to actually put the hinge in, I made a little, to get a little slot, I made a little punch just using a piece of old hacksaw blade. Grind that down just to make a punch that actually just punches through. Just tap that through to get a little slot to put the hinge in, and that's, I think, just a nice little touch there. And I just got a little bit of nice detail there. The other thing you can see I've done is I've been playing round at putting a curve on here, because these coaches, if you look at the profile, they have this curve down here. This is sometimes referred to as a tumble home, I believe. So that little curve. Now, birch ply, one of the beauties of it is quite strong. And you always see that. There's these very, very fine little cutouts here. They're quite strong. You could break them if you really got hold of them. But in terms of general handling, they're quite strong and they won't snap very easy. But also, because this birch ply is quite strong, that's quite a lot to have to try and bend that. So I was experimenting with methods of how to get the bend in, and I'll show you what we came up with. This was just some tests just to see if I could get the bend in and it's possible, or to get this tumble home in and it's possible. And that's all nice and fixed in firm there now. So this is what I came up with to put the curves in on those side panels. And you can see just a long copper tube, just over 2 foot long, and I was able to fit in one end my heat gun. So with the heat gun turned on, this copper tube becomes very, very, very hot. You take your skin off, you'd burn yourself quite badly if you touched it. And you'll see this in action later on, putting the curves on. Okay, so we've got the doors positions now marked out on our real panels now. So all we need to do is just basically just to put this groove in. So it wants to be a little groove, but not a scratch where it digs up the sides of the wood. So we just gently drag our scribe over it a few times, just pressing gently. I'm using almost the side of the scribe to, not to scratch, but really just to sink the groove in. You know, once this is painted over, it'll still be visible. So let's put the groove in there to represent where the door is. And the nice thing now is that is a groove that's not scratched. And I know that when I paint that, as I say, that will still be visible. So that will just give it that little bit of detail. Okay, there's the doors marked off now and scribed. And what I've also done, I've just marked the positions where these hinges are going to go. And then we just line it up in the groove that we've scored. And just gently punch through. This little punch I've made's got like a little chisel end. I can just feel that's gone through now. On here there's a little slot that is put in. You can see it's made the slot as it's just pierced through there. Done the little notches, the little slot ready to take the hinges on the doors. And what we're ready to do now is to put the curve on. At the moment these are a straight line. We want to put a slight curve on for the tumble home. So let's switch on and start it up. Within a few minutes this pipe becomes very hot, and I will show you. I'll take a little drop of water. That is now very hot. So we can now begin our steaming bending process. Just soak, get some water down this wood. What we need to do now is just gently rest it on here. And I don't know whether the camera is picking this up, but I can hear this bubbling, the moisture underneath. Just gently pressing down on here. Just starting to get a slight bend on here at the moment. It's already starting to happen. Let's do the other side. This far end is a little bit hotter, obviously, as this is where the heat is mainly being thrown out. As I mentioned before, copper is quite a good conductor of heat. So the whole length of this tube is certainly hot enough to make water boil on contact with it. That's not looking too bad at all now. Let's finish a bit more here. That's looking good along its full length. That's what we're looking for. I've got the body, the base, with our two end pieces clamped up now, and we're going to put the first panel on. So this is very much trial and error. This is how I'm thinking of gluing this at the moment. I'll see how this works out. What I've also done for the clamping process, made two little sort of clamps, if you like. And what these do, these, when I put the piece on, these will go on here on the ends. These will go on the ends, and I will clamp. The clamps will go across here, so it makes sure that the whole surface here is clamped, is glued and clamped. This is the first panel all clamped up into position now, so I shall let this one dry and see how this works out. Let me see if we're on the right track. When this works out okay, I shall use the same process to clamp up and glue the others. Well, we should give this a couple of hours to dry now. And just got some glue between the base and the panel, and then use the clamp just to push that square against the base. So there's the whole setup now, and you certainly need plenty of clamps to do this properly.